especially for those students. I am going to record this, and we will have it up online. Usually takes me a few days to get it back up. So there will be 2 videos, because at the same time you guys are launching, our Write and Lick students are also taking off, and so there's going to be another video, which is basically the same content but a different timeline. So make sure you're watching the right one if you do rewatch parts of this, or if you hear from your peers that they haven't seen this, then you can direct them to the website. I will also. All right, so I'm going to get started. One moment while I share a presentation with you guys. All right, just to be clear, if someone could speak up, you guys can all see the presentation. Can one person just say yes?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. All right, so this is the small clerkship team in Seattle. It's Miss Bakeen and Jean Cos-Lucas and myself. I've been with the clerkship now for almost a year, but I've been in the Department of Family Medicine for almost 5 years. So this is my first year in the clerkship, but now I've completed one full one, and you will see many names attached to the program administrators, but most of us are just called clerkship administrators, and that's for any clerkship you rotate through. Program manager, education specialist is what I tend to go by. So here's the overall goals of the Family Medicine Clerkship. We kind of tackle these through our objectives throughout the clerkship, but basically there's a biopsychosocial aspect of care, comprehensive care, meaning throughout the whole comprehensive and continuity of care throughout the lifespan of the patient, and then the context of care in the setting, communication with patients, and then coordination and integration of care and how that works in the community and with other healthcare providers. And you'll kind of see how this is met through the objectives. We have 2 kind of larger scale objectives. At the end, you should be able to discuss the principles of care within the framework of family medicine. And you should also be able to discuss the critical role family physicians play within the healthcare system. Hopefully you'll be able to kind of chat about this during your mid and end of clerkship review, which we'll talk about later. The 3 kind of clinical aspects to the family medicine clerkship, to summarize these. Again, make sure you please mute your phones just so everyone can hear. Number 2 here is kind of the clinical, dealing with the clinical knowledge of acute conditions and how you guys will kind of formulate that and present. And then kind of our longitudinal care, where you deal with initial evaluation and follow-up for chronic disease and pregnancy in a family medicine setting. And then lastly, you'll kind of tackle health maintenance, and that's for any age or gender. Specifically, we kind of tackle just child and adult throughout all the various settings where you guys are. And then lastly, we have patient-centered communication skills that we have a little curriculum for that you'll follow throughout your clerkship. And then we have a objective meeting professionalism, and we'll again go into more detail on how we kind of tackle that. All right, so hopefully you've all been to this page. This is the Info for Students tab. Please bookmark this page. A lot of documents have been updated for this school year now, technically 2017-18 school year. We've updated the syllabus, this orientation, some slight updates to our assignment tracker. And then really this is your resource throughout the entire clerkship. And I mentioned the assignment tracker, but that's really where you'll go at least once a week. And this is where you track all curricular assignments for the family medicine clerkship. So if you haven't already gone to this, then you should do so, because it gives you a really overarching view of the clerkship and everything that you'll need to take care of. So the assignment tracker, as I said, is where you track assignments. And so the green marks in the far right, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but is where you'll tick off. And then the date that you tick off will be on the date recorded. We don't ask you to tick things off immediately after you complete them, but we do require weekly updates. And so I like to say, please go in and update this Thursday or Friday every week. That includes week 1 and the last week. And then when we'll talk about this later, but you will have a mid and end of clerkship review. We ask that you print out copies of this and bring it to those reviews with your primary preceptor or your site director. And don't forget, it sounds pretty easy to remember, but scroll all the way down in the assignment tracker. There's requirements that are weekly that are listed at the bottom of the tracker. So the first part, clinical knowledge, there's 4 sections to this, kind of align with our objectives. We have acute conditions, chronic diseases, maintenance for adult and child health, and pregnancy and labor and disease, or pregnancy, labor and delivery, apologies. That goes underneath the longitudinal care, sorry. So underneath each of these sections, you're required to see at least 14 of the 18. And we'll go into more detail on this later, but if you don't see it or aren't able to see it in clinic, then you must complete the corresponding FM case, which is listed after it on the assignment tracker. And we'll talk about FM cases later. Some clinics do not have pregnancy, labor, and delivery. If you're at a site, and talk about this with your site director now, that doesn't have this, then you're required to see all of the cases, or 5 of the 6 cases. So scrolling down on the assignment tracker, we have the effective patient-centered care, and this is our patient-centered care curriculum. Starting this week, you'll have 2 requirements, to read a couple documents or a couple articles that are there, and then to complete the Improving Communication Assessment Training. That assessment training is about an hour in length, and you'll get a couple forms from there. And those forms are also linked within this assignment tracker for the rest of your assignments through the clerkship. And so, but basically you'll get something from this. You'll learn how to use the patient-centered observation form. And that's where you start to, and the video will train you on how to use it appropriately. And then in week 2, you have to watch a short video and start to use the form in clinic. So weeks 2 to 3, again, you'll start using that form, that patient-centered observation form, and you'll start to apply it to, you'll apply these patient-centered concepts on the form. Now, you can kind of see a screenshot of page 1 of the form here. The form is a few pages long, and it's a long form. We don't expect you to complete the form in its entirety every time you use it. If you want to focus on a few things that you're working on, perhaps, or a few things that your site preceptor wants you to work on, establishing, so you could say, hey, I'm really want to work on establishing rapport and agenda setting, and maybe just ask your preceptor to observe you using those elements of the form. We do ask you, and then the next time you have them use it, do focus on different elements. We would like you to use the form in its entirety at least once through the clerkship, but we ask that you use this form a minimum of 4 to 6 times throughout the weeks 2 and 6. I think people tend to find this really helpful in kind of your clinic visits. At least that's some of the feedback that we get from the clerkship. And as a reminder, this is your clerkship's mini CEX, so it is a required part of the clerkship. You do not need to send these forms in to me. This is a part of your growth and development within the clerkship, but we hope you find these useful. So again, just focus on parts of them 4 to 6 times at least, and hopefully you'll have time to go through the entire form, but maybe once throughout your clerkship. Sorry, I'm just making sure. All right. So below on your assignment tracker, below the patient-centered care curriculum is our optional curricula. Here we have 3 modules on art. Our art curriculum is articulating, I forget the acronym, I apologize. But it's about how to ask meaningful questions, or how to ask questions the right way. Students often say that this is useful. We also have some online learning modules there that tie to the UW Wish platform. And if you're curious about those, you can go ahead and watch them. And so this is, again, optional. If you do it, it is recommended that you do it early so you can focus on some of the other requirements of the clerkship. And then lastly, at the very bottom of the clerkship is our professionalism and our clerkship environment. This is what you will do around 2 to 3 weeks when you do your mid-clerkship review, and again at the end. And then at the very end of the clerkship, we ask you to kind of review the clerkship in its full. And that should be tracked on this tracker as well. All right, so I'm going to go into the professionalism requirement. You should review this with both your site director and your site and the website, and review the expectations of professionalism in the clerkship. Also, please review the family medicine feedback and evaluation form. This is also called our grade anchors. There's a section in there under professionalism, so being very clear of what's expected you on the clerkship and how that can impact your grade. And discuss the professionalism performance. Make sure you always discuss that at your mid and end of clerkship reviews. So weeks 3 and 6. And then also at the end, if you feel like you can identify an outstanding faculty, someone who's really gone above and beyond to help you throughout this experience, feel free to nominate them for a faculty award. I'll send you a link to that nomination. And likewise, faculty can do that for you. And so we have a picture here of our student award winners, and we acknowledge students and we acknowledge faculty once a year in our October faculty development meeting that we have 4 times a year, but that's just for our faculty. The faculty development is for our faculty so they can become better teachers for you, and we invite students to be there if they're award winners. So just so you're clear on the teacher responsibilities or responsibilities of the teacher, this is what we expect of our educators. So we hope that they will treat you fairly, respectfully, and that they'll give you timely feedback, constructive feedback, and accurate feedback. So that's part of the faculty development that we go through with our educators. And of course, your responsibility as a learner to be courteous. A lot of this is pretty obvious. Maintain patient confidentiality, know your limitations, and view feedback as an opportunity to improve. They're trying to give you constructive feedback to help you in your education, and taking that and helping and using it as a tool to help you get better. Your duty hours are listed in the UW School of Medicine handbook. Please make sure you review that and let us know if anything is not being followed appropriately. So we have this recipe for FM clerkship success, and that kind of is another document similar to what you received during your transition phase, where the MS3 is tips for success, but this is our own kind of version of that. And I'm gonna open up what this looks like. I believe I have this open. One moment. Sorry about that. I'm gonna reshare. So it's just a document. Again, you can download this from the info for you can download this from the students info for students page, and it's just a good thing to print out and maybe keep on your radar. Adaptability, ask for feedback. Sometimes if you don't feel like you're getting it, make sure you can just ask for it. Share what you've learned with your team, be a team member. And then it does at the very bottom have some like don'ts, just things to kind of keep in mind that you shouldn't do. So I just like to share that, so that's there as a helpful resource to help you be successful. And oops, sorry, going back to the PowerPoint. So moving on, professionalism concerning comments and low scores. So there is a strict policy that we follow this with the School of Medicine, and basically we want first and foremost to protect your confidentiality. Right now, all those scores go to the academic affairs office and the dean of curriculum, and unless there is imminent danger to yourself or the student, we do not contact the site. And I just want to reiterate here that we don't even know because these go straight to the dean's office. We get notified long after your grade has been submitted, any possible chance of appeal has been submitted, and so that there's no reason that your grade could be impacted. And the only time that we're ever notified is unless there's danger. That said, when you guys submit these, we'd love to kind of close the loop. Often when you submit these kinds of low comments or these scores, it's good to know what's happened. And so we ask if we'd like to contact you, if we have any more questions to kind of follow up to see if there's any more information we could use, but also just to let you know what action has been taken after you've submitted something that's potentially a low score or comment. So again, you don't need to leave your name. It's anonymous. However, if you'd like us, if you'd like, we'd like to be able to contact you and let you know what we've done to address your concern. So it's, as I mentioned before, we have a formal curriculum, FM cases. There's 40 interactive virtual cases, 33 FM cases, 5 clip, and 2 simple. I know many of you are starting your first clerkships right now. So we're not the only clerkship that uses this. So I recommend now, you must actually log on to FM cases once, because this is how we do our exam. Be very cognizant of spelling your name, because once you log on and your first login, it's what you get for the rest of the time. I don't think you can go back and update your name. It seems like a silly thing, but it's true. So if this is your first time logging on to MedU cases, make sure you double check that before you submit. The reason why I use this is, with so many people out in WWAMI, this is a great resource to have you guys all on the same page. This is used nationally, and this is how we do our self-assessment. This is linked on our info for students page and in the assignment tracker. So go now, at least log on, get familiar with it. So why do we use it? Again, this is equivalent for all. So with so many people out in the region, it's the way that we can kind of give you all the same education. And then the way that it's structured, it teaches you to be a doctor. So it doesn't just, it's not a textbook that you read, it kind of walks you through a case in a similar way that you would with a patient. And there is some redundancy and things because it helps you with memory. And so it helps you develop those clinical reasoning skills, and it's a lot better than studying from a textbook, in our opinion. So more on the cases. At the end is a kind of an executive summary or a PDF. These are useful and they're used for summary. We do recommend that you go through the whole case and not just review the summaries. There is some redundancy built in. It's intentional to help you remember it, because this is material that should be mastered. And if you're curious, if you don't want to do them from start to finish and you'd like to kind of tackle them by subject, then we have, and I'm going to open this too, it's a content list that is available on our info for students page. And basically it's a searchable document. So I'm opening the, the content list, where you just control find, and you can say, you can search for, if you're seeing patients in a clinic and you want to do the case on that topic, you can search for various cases and study up ahead of time or during. So we hope that that will help you to use the cases well. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Sorry. Since there's so many cases, we ask you to try to pace yourself and work through at least one a day. They take anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour to complete. And then these cases aren't technically required, but they're what our exam is based off of. So it's highly recommended that you do them. But by pacing yourself, it doesn't make it too overwhelming. So overall, this is our kind of weekly required activities. Week 1, you will have your site orientation. If you haven't already had it, you'll continue to have it today with your sites. I know there's probably a lot of things you have to do to get completely orientated so you can start seeing patients. You might want to, our exam is on a Thursday, the last Thursday of the week, of week 6. So if you are traveling a long distance between this clerkship and your next, and you have no other anticipated absences, you are allowed 2 absences, but you need to talk about it with your clerkship director today so that they're able to build that into the schedule appropriately. And so if you need to, you can have that last day as a travel day, but you need to discuss it now with your clerkship director. And then you're attending the clerkship orientation webinar. So week 2, This is in our, I will send out the link via email, but it's also in our syllabus and on our Info for Students page. We have a clinical reasoning practice test, which I'll talk about. So we ask you to do that during week 2, because in week 3, which is not listed here, we have a meeting with one of our clerkship co-directors. And if you have any questions about that clinical reasoning practice test, then you can ask those questions in that conference call on the Monday of week 3. It's not in here because it's not required. You have to take the test, but you do not have to call in to ask questions. That's just there if you do have questions. Week 3, you must do your clerkship, mid-clerkship review. Week 6, you have your final exam and your end of clerkship review. At the end of week 6, you should submit all your site and faculty evaluations. And then at least 4 to 6 times during the rotation, you need to use the COF form as the clerkship's mini CEX. And you will talk about this with your site director at the mid and end of clerkship review. So the clinical reasoning practice test, again, here's the URL. So it's available on this PowerPoint in your syllabus, and I'll send it out by email. It's 14 questions based off those cases, 2, 4, 6, 20, and 21. Those are kind of more the common conditions, I think, that you'll see in clinic. And you just review the answers, and it just helps you walk you through. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what the MedU FM or the final will look like as well. And then voluntary, you can call and talk with one of the clerkship directors. That's Dr. Miss Bakeen or Dr. Jean Kozlukas from 12 to 1 Pacific time on the Monday of week 3. And I'll send out that link ahead of time so you have it. I'll send out the conference call number. Sorry, it's not a Zoom, it's a call. So why do we have the clinical reasoning practice test? It's short, it's a requirement. We want it because of the recent increase in step 2 passing scores. Any chance you have to kind of retake tests and it helps with your board scores. And so I know it's a ways off for some of you, but it's just another opportunity to kind of practice, basically. I think that's important. And the family medicine exam is on the last Thursday of week 6 from 9:30 to 12:30 Pacific time. So you'll need to adjust if you're in another time zone. It's online, closed book, 100 questions, and it's based on the FM cases, CLIP, and simple cases. So again, while we don't require that you do the cases, it's highly recommended because it's what the exam is based off of. So overall, we want to make sure that you're super clear with your evaluation process. Write a note down now if you want to make sure that you understand how your site director collects feedback from preceptors and about this whole process. So if this isn't clear to you, then please reach out to us, because this is one thing we want to make sure you fully understand from start to finish. But in your orientations with your site director, they should review this. But throughout the course of the clerkship, they'll collect feedback from their preceptors about your performance. At the end of the clerkship, they will incorporate that feedback into a preliminary grade form, which gets submitted to us. We will take into consideration the length of time that you work with different preceptors and when you work with them, whether you work with them at the beginning or whether you work with them at the end. And so they try to think of your whole experience in telemedicine, and then they kind of assimilate that into an evaluation they submit to us. We incorporate your final exam scores, and that is then submitted to you. And we'll go over the grading criteria and how that all breaks down in a moment. So again, if this isn't clear to you, or if you have questions about this process, you can email us or check in with your site director. So when you will look at the grading criteria and the feedback and evaluation form, which has our grade anchors, that is based on 11 scoring categories, and they are listed here. So this is what you will look over with your site director at your mid and end of clerkship review. But basically these will average to be your clinical grade, the scores that you receive on these. This is a screenshot of page 1 of the grade anchor, or the grade anchors of the feedback and evaluation form. And so you can kind of see where you may lie and what you can do to improve or move to the next level. So if you're at a 3, what you can do to improve and to get to a 4. So on our info for students page, again, we have our grading criteria. And this is students will receive 3 grades: a clinical grade, a final exam grade, and a final grade. And this is our breakdown. So those 11 categories will get averaged. And that is the grading categories there for honors, high pass, pass, and fail. Seems that our honors cutoff is high. However, I would say that over 40% of the students in the last academic year were able to achieve that. We have a very different process in which we collect evaluations. We put a lot of responsibility on the site directors. So it's very different than a lot of the other clerkships that you have taken or you will take. Final exam, that's the breakdown. And then again, the final exam is applied to the clinical grade to become your final grade. So please let us know if you have any questions about this process. Okay. Those are the final exam scores. Again, sorry for the redundancy. If you have any more questions about this, please let us know. Those are the adjustments that get applied to the clinical grade based off the score that you get on the exam. If in the case that you do fail the exam, you must register for a remediation course, and you'll need to retake and pass the exam. So many of you, this might be your first clerkship. I'm sure many of you have plenty of experience with EHRs. However, we have you will get orientated to the EHR at your site, but we also have a checklist that's good to go over to make sure you kind of know what you need to know and know where to go. So that I'm not going to open it here, but it's available on our info for students page, and it's a good list if you have any questions or you just want to make sure that you are clear on everything at your clinic or site. Okay, so I think that's it. I just want to open it up really quick for any questions you may have. Feel free to put those in the chat box or speak up if you have any questions.
Do we all take the exam at our site, or do we go to some central location somewhere?
Oh, that's a good question. So I believe family medicine is one of 2 or 3 clerkships that you are able to take the family medicine exam at your site. Some sites in Seattle, in or near Seattle, will come here to my office and I'll proctor you. Have that discussion with your site director. If you're a site near Seattle, often Bremerton, Madigan students come to Seattle and take the exam here. But yeah, I would say 80% of this, 90% of the sites, you will take your exam at your site.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Again, guys, I like to make these fairly quick so that you feel like you can get back to it. We set an hour, but if you guys don't have any questions, you're free to go. So thank you.
Hey, Jamie, one quick question for you.
Yeah.
We were wondering, the exam's on a Thursday. Previous clerkships, they have some time given for reading and studying for the exam. Is that for this clerkship as well?
That varies by site. Some sites will have more time than others. You have to talk about that with your site director. We don't build it in technically saying that all sites must have this day. So talk about it now with your site director and see what their plan is for how you can incorporate studying. Sometimes people like to incorporate it, hey, why don't you have these patients that you're seeing tomorrow, do these cases, and then we'll give you this time for studying. But we don't have a set amount of time, no, that's put aside for just studying. But your clerkship site may.
Okay, I guess not day-to-day studying, but for the actual exam, like a reading day.
Yeah, we don't put that aside for you guys. You need to talk about
Okay, we'll check here, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you should have some time on the weekends to. I know that you need the weekends to rest as well, but I mean, not every clerkship will have time on the weekends, but you should have some. All right. And I could double check that. You said this is David and Mira?
Yeah, we're in Anacortes.
Okay. I'll look and make sure to see if there's anything there for you guys. And then also, to my knowledge, we don't set anything as far as a clerkship rule for all sites. But.
Yeah, I think the question is because lots of rotations give you the Thursday before the test off completely, so you can study Thursday and then take the test Friday. I think that's what they're asking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that there's some new guidelines for patient care phase students around this, so I will double check to see if this is something that we haven't really put on our radar. But I, to my knowledge, Thursday wouldn't be off. However, if you talk now with your sites, I'm probably sure that most of them would grant you or allow you some time to read and study beforehand. But again, it's just that early communication and trying to schedule time. But I will double check any policies. And if there is, then I'll send a notice out to our sites. Okay. So far, I know there's nothing mandated for, especially since our clerkship is on the Thursday. I'm not sure, but I will double check. Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, if you don't see an email following up about the time off before the exam, you can send me a reminder, but I'll try to get back to all of you, letting you know if there is some time off, okay, before the exam. Otherwise, please just talk about it with your site directors now and see if they can maybe accommodate that in the interim, since you will be meeting with them today. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Welcome. Enjoy.
Thank you.
All right.